They heard it before they saw it. At first, it was not even a sound, more like a feeling under the skin. A low, distant vibration creeping up through the damp earth, into their boots, into their legs, as if something huge and hungry was waking up somewhere inside the fog. The world in front of them was nothing but a gray wall. No horizon, no clear line of sky. Just a thick, milky haze, smeared with darker shapes that could be anything. A tree line, a ruined house, or a tank. The anti-tank crew lay pressed into the cold dirt on the forward slope, faces almost touching the ground, eyes fixed on the pale void ahead. Their launcher sat squat and silent under a camo net, cables snaking back into their dugout like the tail of some coiled animal. The youngest of them, the radio operator they all called Sour, swallowed hard and leaned closer to his commander. "Sir, we can't see shit out there," he whispered, voice cracking. "What if we fire at nothing?" The commander didn't answer right away. He was kneeling beside the launcher, one knee in the mud, one glove resting lightly on the metal body of the ATGM unit. His face was calm in that dangerous, unnatural way of people who have already accepted whatever is about to happen. He narrowed his eyes at the fog as if he could burn through it by will alone. "Don't look for a tank," he murmured. "Look for a shape." He turned his head slightly toward the gunner on the scope. "Remember the plywood," he said quietly. "Tonight, either it saves you or it buries you." The gunner's hands tightened around the grips. The name plywood hit all of them like a slap of cold water, because for the last months, that word meant only one thing: endless, exhausting, ridiculous training. Outside, the invisible engines in the fog growled a little louder. The commander made his choice. Positions, eyes on. No one blinks until I say so. The scene froze there. Damp earth, fog, the thin line between life and death, and the story slipped backward to the day when everyone still thought they were a joke. When everyone laughed, "They're shooting at plywood again." The sun was brutal that day. White, flat, merciless. Heat shimmered over the hillside where the anti-tank crew had dug themselves in. The ground was dry and dusty, the grass beaten flat by boots and crates and the weight of days. From a distance, their position looked like any other. A shallow trench, a few dugouts, a camo net stretched on crooked poles. But up close, it was different, because their horizon was full of ghosts. They stood along the ridge like a line of clumsy soldiers, rough wooden cutouts, nailed together from boards and old doors, shapes that sort of resembled tanks, IFVs, APCs. On each silhouette, someone had painted names in crooked white letters: T-72, BMP, BTR, unknown tank. They looked absurd in the bright sunlight, cartoon war in the middle of a real one. The man in charge walked slowly along this forest of wooden enemies with a small notebook in one hand, like an instructor on a range. His call sign was Teacher, and not by accident. Behind him, 4 men moved, carrying the weight of his obsession. Alex, the gunner, tall with a permanent frown from squinting into optics. Mole, the assistant gunner, quiet and watchful. Gray, the loader, older than the rest, already with threads of silver in his hair. Sour, the young radio operator, always one bad joke away from a panic attack. "Stop," Teacher said suddenly. All 4 men froze on the ridge, reflexively, like someone had fired a starting pistol. In front of them, the field dropped gently down into a shallow valley. Out there, among the bushes, the plywood silhouettes stood at odd angles, half hidden, some close, some barely visible as dark smears against the background. Teacher raised his hand, palm flat. "Today, nobody fires a single shot," he said. "No blanks, no rockets, only this." He tapped his temple with a finger. Gray wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand and muttered under his breath. Alex shifted the training tube on his shoulder and stared downrange. Teacher stepped closer to him. "Look," he said quietly. "This is your usual landscape. You've seen it every day for weeks. Hills, trees, scrub, dirt." He waved his arm slowly across the horizon. "Now ask yourself one question. What doesn't belong here?" Alex narrowed his eyes. For a long moment, nothing changed. Just heat, just air, just the stupid wooden shapes in the distance. Then something clicked. "There," he said slowly, lifting the tube and pointing. "That edge, it's too straight. The line, it's wrong." The bushes don't grow like that. Teacher nodded once. Good. Now where's the turret? Alex frowned. I can't see it. Then draw it, teacher replied. In your head. Imagine where it has to be if that is the hull. Complete the shape, even if you don't see all of it. He opened his notebook and scribbled something down without looking. That's what we're doing here. We're not teaching your eyes to see tanks, we're teaching your brain to see logic. Behind them, down the line, someone laughed. From another trench, a neighboring platoon watched the scene through binoculars, leaning on sandbags, cigarettes hanging from their lips. Look at that circus again, one of them snorted. His call sign was Chief, and he was very proud of it. Our guys dig real positions, and these clowns play theater with furniture. Another soldier beside him chuckled. Let them. First time they see a real tank, they're gonna freeze. This isn't plywood, man. It's steel. It screams at you. It crushes the ground when it moves. On the ridge, teacher ignored them as if they did not exist. He had heard it all before. By midday, the heat got heavier, and so did the training. The crew had already walked the slope 3 times, changed positions of the plywood targets, practiced identifying silhouettes by one visible corner, and run through imaginary fog scenarios with their eyes half closed and faces turned against the glare. They were exhausted and irritated. New scenario, teacher said, clapping his hands once. Fog, Sauer groaned. Fog? Sir, the sun is frying us alive. There's not a single cloud. Where are you going to get fog from, the fridge? In your head, teacher said evenly. Then he reached into a crate and pulled out 2 old smoke grenades. He yanked the pins and tossed them downwind. A moment later, white smoke began to billow across the low ground, thickening around the plywood silhouettes, turning them into half-formed shadows. Now, teacher said, we learn to shoot at what you almost can't see. Alex plugged the training block into the launcher and dropped to his knee behind the sight. What do you see? Teacher asked. Nothing, Alex said honestly. Just milk. Not nothing, teacher corrected, his voice sharp but calm. Describe it. Angle, smudge, line, dot, out loud. Alex exhaled. Dark, vertical line, broken at the top, lighter patch beneath, faint, horizontal line at the bottom. Good, teacher said. Now think. What could that be? Turret, hull, road wheels, driver's hatch? He walked behind him, listening. Connect the dots. You saw these shapes clean 100 times. Now your brain has to finish the picture for your eyes. Further down the ridge, Gray adjusted another plywood tank, twisting it 30 degrees off axis so its hull showed at an angle. Mole stood with a notebook of his own, marking distances, angles, times for each exposure in the smoke. They did it again, and again, and again. Teacher invented drills that made the others think he was insane. Identify the type of vehicle by just the shadow on its side. Track a target that appears and disappears behind smoke every 3 seconds. Aim and fire based only on verbal corrections from Mole. Right, more right, stop. Aim between the second and third imaginary wheel. By evening, their nerves were raw. They collapsed into their dugout, uniforms sticky with sweat, hands smelling of burned smoke and oil. Gray leaned back and stared at the plywood silhouettes barely visible above the trench. If I see one more piece of plywood, I'm going to start shooting at trees just for variety, he muttered. Sauer rubbed his eyes. Who are we even doing this for? There haven't been tanks on this sector in months. The only thing we kill is time. There was a short pause. Mole, who rarely spoke, said quietly, We're doing it for the day they do come, and by then, there won't be time to learn. The words hung in the stale air of the dugout. Sauer tried to laugh it off. What are you, some kind of prophet now? Mole just shrugged. I just don't want my first real shot to be my last one. At the entrance to the dugout, a shadow appeared. Teacher stood there, one hand on the frame. Good, he said. You can think. That's progress. They looked up, half guilty, half annoyed. Tomorrow night, teacher added, we shoot at plywood in the dark. Sauer let his head fall back against the log wall. Sir, can't we have one Sunday off? He groaned. Sunday? Teacher raised an eyebrow. You're an ATGM crew, not a church choir. Your days off are after the war, or at the cemetery, nowhere else. He turned away before they could answer. The dugout fell silent. Above them, on the ridge, the plywood tanks stood against the sunset like cardboard cutouts in a child's game. But Teacher wasn't looking at plywood. He was looking through it, at something that hadn't happened yet but was already on its way. He had heard the same sentence once, long before this war, on a training range where he had been the nervous rookie and someone else had been the hard-eyed instructor. "E. If you miss in combat," that man had told him, "you're not just a bad student. You're a grave digger for your own people." Teacher never forgot that. That afternoon, as the light bled out of the sky and shadows stretched long over the hillside, he closed his notebook and sat alone at the edge of the trench, staring at the silhouettes one last time. In the distance, from the neighboring unit's position, he heard someone chuckle again. "They're still shooting at plywood," a voice said. "Let them play. War will teach them for real." Teacher listened. Then he smiled without humor. "You're right," he thought. "War will teach. The only question is, who did their homework?" Weeks later, when the fog rolled in and the ground began to tremble under the tracks of real machines, nobody on that ridge was laughing anymore. The plywood targets were gone, but their shapes were still there, burned deep into the minds and muscles of the men behind the launcher. And when the commander leaned close to his gunner in that gray, suffocating haze and whispered, "Remember the plywood," he wasn't talking about wood at all. He was talking about every single boring, hateful, exhausting hour they had spent fighting ghosts. Because now, the ghosts had arrived in steel, and they were coming straight at them. The call came in the middle of the night, not with sirens, not with explosions, just a quiet voice at the dugout entrance. "Teacher, radio, it's for you." The air inside was heavy with sweat and damp wool. Someone snored softly in the corner. Someone else scrolled through old photos on a cracked phone, screen dimmed to a faint glow. Teacher took the handset, already awake behind the eyes. "Teacher here," Static hissed, then a clipped, tense voice. "Recon to Teacher, listen carefully, we've got movement." The word movement was wrong. Too soft, too ordinary. "Type?" Teacher asked. "Armor," the voice replied. "Probable tank plus IFVs. They're assembling in the rear now. If they come, they'll use your sector, the gully right in front of you." Teacher closed his eyes for a moment, not in fear, but in calculation. "ETA? Anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, Recon said. "Depends how fast they form up and get their shit together. But they are coming." The line went dead. Teacher stared at the black plastic for one heartbeat. Then he clipped the radio back on the wall and turned around. The dugout was no longer a place, it was a switch. He flipped it. "All crew up," he said, no shouting, no theatrics. "Combat posts, right now." Alex jerked awake with a violent inhale, blanket sliding off him. Sauer almost fell off his bunk, his heart clearly trying to escape through his throat. Gray swung his legs over the edge with the slow practice motion of an older man whose body complains but obeys. Mole was already on his feet. "What is it?" Sauer asked, voice too high. "Visitors," Teacher said. "With tracks, night walk, our ridge, front row seats." Sauer swallowed. "Tanks?" "Probably," Teacher admitted, "plus friends." For half a second, fear moved like a shadow across their faces, then training shoved it aside. Because they had rehearsed this, in a way, 100 times already. The only difference now was that nothing would end with Teacher saying, "Good, again." On the slope, the wind had changed. It blew colder, damp from the gully below. The darkness out front was no longer empty. It felt thick, like a mouth about to speak. The crew moved without wasted motion. Gray checked the ammo crates, tapping each missile tube with his knuckles, counting quietly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. 7 shots. 7 is plenty, Teacher said. "We don't need a war. We need a result." Mole adjusted the camo net above the launcher, making sure it didn't snag on the tube's path. Then, he kicked a shallow groove into the dirt for the bipod, creating a solid, repeatable anchor point. "Here," he said to Alex. "Same notch as always, no surprises." Alex knelt behind the ATGM unit and flipped open the protective covers on the optic, fingers suddenly clumsy and too large. He forced himself to breathe, in, out. This is the same site, the same hill, the same field. Only the targets are different. Only tonight, The targets shoot back. Sauer crawled into his little corner, headset on, radios checked, battery levels read, frequencies confirmed. His hands shook a little as he plugged cables in. "Teacher," he said quietly, "can I ask you something?" Teacher was checking the firing cable, eyes on the connectors. "Ask." "What if we miss?" Sauer said. The word felt like a crime in his mouth. Teacher didn't look up. "For months," he said, "you've been looking at nothing but plywood." He finally turned to face him, voice low but firm. "If you still plan to miss after all that, you should have told me earlier. I wouldn't have wasted the grenades." Sauer tried to smile and failed. "I'm serious, sir." "So am I," Teacher replied. "Fear's normal. Missing is optional." He pointed up the slope toward the ghost dark horizon. "Out there, it's the same geometry, same distances, same angles. The only thing that's new is the noise in your head. Ignore that. Trust what we drilled into you when you hated me the most." He paused. "Especially then." On the neighboring position, men watched the ATGM crew through the gloom. Chief raised his binoculars, lips pressed together. "Look at them," he muttered. "Not a lot of running around." His deputy, a lean guy everyone called Fox, shrugged. "Maybe they already spent all their panic on the plywood," he said. "Got none left." Chief let the binoculars drop and exhaled. "Good. Someone around here should keep their shit together." They listened. Far away, somewhere low and unseen, a deep rumble rolled across the night like distant thunder, except it was too steady, too mechanical. Tracks. The sound came and went in waves as the wind shifted, sometimes so faint it almost disappeared, then suddenly louder, as if the earth itself had turned up the volume for a second. On the ridge, Alex pressed his eye to the sight. The world inside the optic was narrower, flatter, grainier than the real one. But it had one advantage. It cut away everything unnecessary. No stars, no sky, no rear lines. Only the gray slope falling away and the denser darkness at the bottom where the gully lay. "I have nothing," he whispered. "Just dark." "You're not waiting for a tank," Teacher said softly from beside him. "You're waiting for a mistake in the picture." He crouched next to him, their shoulders almost touching. "Remember the fog drills? Smoke on the plywood? What did you see first back then?" Alex frowned inside the eyepiece. "Not the turret," he said slowly. "The shadow, the way the light caught the edge of the hull. It looked too straight, too clean for bushes." "Exactly," Teacher said. "Tonight you're hunting straight lines." He put a hand on Alex's shoulder. "You know this landscape like your own face. Every dip, every tree. Anything that doesn't fit, that's your tank." He raised his head. "Sauer, confirm. No friendly armor anywhere near our sector." Sauer flicked through notes and signal logs with trembling fingers. "Confirmed. No friendlies scheduled forward of the second line. No patrols in the gully. Anyone out there is not ours." Teacher nodded once. "Good. Then if it moves in front of us and weighs more than a cow, we kill it." Minutes stretched. Nothing is longer than the time before contact. The night pressed on their backs. The damp soaked through their clothes. Their legs went numb. Their minds, however, refused to dull. Every tiny noise, every gust of wind, every rustle in the grass turned into a possible enemy. And then the ground changed. You don't just hear heavy vehicles, you feel them. A low, subsonic tremor crawled up the slope, a slow pulse under the soil. The dirt under Alex's knees seemed to grow heavier. Gray whispered without meaning to. "They're coming." Mole raised his binoculars and stared into the dark, teeth clenched. "I've got something," he murmured, low, moving, hard to tell. The fog. Because there was fog, just like on their drills. Here, in this low ground, it formed often, a ground mist that clung to the folded terrain before sunrise. Tonight, it floated in torn bands, shifting with the faint air currents. In it, shapes were born and died every second. Sauer's voice trembled in Teacher's earpiece. "Recon confirms armor on the move," he whispered. "Thermals show multiple hotspots. Lead element entering the gully. They're heading straight for you." Teacher's heart rate did not spike. It shifted down. He had been waiting for this exact sentence for months. "Copy that," he said. "We have the stage ready." He switched to battalion net. "Granite, this is Teacher. Possible visual contact with armor in our sector. Request permission to engage when target is confirmed." The battalion commander's voice came back, tight as a wire. "Teacher, be absolutely sure. We have no friendlies planned in front of you, but fog is a bitch. Last thing we need is blue on blue." Another pause. "If you're certain, you fire. Responsibility will be on my head. But your eyes are my eyes right now." Teacher looked at the dark slope, at Alex bent over the site, at the ghost fog rolling in the gully. Then he closed his eyes for 1 second. In that second, years collapsed into a single image. Plywood silhouettes on a sunburned hill, white chalk circles marking weak spots, arrows and words like ammo and fuel, men swearing under their breath as he made them repeat the same target acquisition drill until their throats were dry. He opened his eyes again. He no longer saw fog. He saw angles. "Understood," he said calmly. "If I fire, I know exactly who I'm shooting at." He put the radio down. Decision made. Inside the site, something shifted. Alex saw it before he quite realized he had. A darker smear inside the dark, not bigger, just different. Wrong. "Contact," he whispered, and suddenly his mouth felt bone dry. "I've got something at about 1,000. "Not something," Teacher said quietly. "Talk to me like on the range. Describe." Alex forced his brain to wrap words around the image. "Vertical shape, darker than the background," he began. "Top edge uneven, like a turret. Bottom edge straight. There's a brighter spot to the right, like a headlight or optics. The line underneath..." He swallowed. "The hull is at an angle, not facing, showing the side." Teacher leaned in, eyes on nothing but Alex's reaction. "Type?" "Tank," Alex said, the word pulled out of him. "Feels like a tank. Size, shape. It's too big for anything else." "Distance?" Mole's voice came from beside them, calm, precise. 1,000, maybe 1,100, based on last distance to that tree line and their movement speed. Teacher glanced at the map in his head, not on paper. Enemy staging area, likely route. Time from reported movement to current audio, all of it matched. "Lead vehicle," he said. "The tip. They always put the tank in front." He reached for the radio again, eyes never leaving the darkness ahead. "Granite, Teacher. Lead armor in sight. Hull at an angle. No friendly units possible in that corridor. Request final fire permission." There was a crackle. Then, simply, "Teacher, if your gut and your drills say it's them, send it. Fire." For a heartbeat, Teacher said nothing. He looked at his crew, sour, pale but focused, hands hovering over the radios, gray, stone-faced, one hand on the nearest missile tube as if it were a lifeline. Mole, binoculars glued to his eyes, tracking invisible ghosts. Alex, locked behind the sight, his world reduced to one moving shape in a narrow frame. Teacher knew one thing. If he hesitated now, everything he'd forced them to endure would be a lie. He exhaled slowly. "Granite, this is Teacher. I confirm, it's not ours." He set the radio aside. "All right," he said softly. "Homework time." He knelt beside Alex and put a hand on his shoulder, squeezing just enough to anchor him. "Remember plywood target number 7, he said. "Tank, side exposed, 40-degree angle, morning fog, smoke, the time you hated me most in your life." Alex gave a short, nervous laugh that sounded almost like a cough. "Yeah," he croaked. "I remember. I wanted to start a fire with that damn wooden tank." "Good," Teacher said. "Hatred makes memory stronger." He nodded toward the darkness. "Where was the weak spot on that plywood tank?" Alex closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. And there it was. The cutout silhouette, chalk marks showing the ammunition storage, red circles where to aim, Teacher's voice drilling into his ears. "Under the turret, slightly back, between second and third road wheel. If it's angled, shift forward half a hull." He opened his eyes again. "Under the turret," he said. "Slightly back. If it's at angle, I move the aim forward." Teacher's hand tightened on his shoulder. "Exactly. You're not aiming at a monster. You're aiming at a point you've hit 1,000 times before. The only difference is, tonight, the plywood screams." He straightened. "Sour," he said quietly. "Log time, first engagement, anti-tank crew ready." Sour checked his watch with shaking fingers. "Time marked," he whispered. The world narrowed to the soft whine of the electronics, the distant growl of engines, and the shallow breathing of 4 men on a cold slope. "Target locked?" Teacher asked. Alex adjusted the crosshair, tracking the shadow as it crept through the fog. Locked, he breathed. Tank side on. Distance 1,000. I've got him. Teacher inhaled once. Fire when ready, he said. There was no dramatic countdown, no speech. Just a man, a machine, and a shape in the fog. Alex's finger found the trigger, the metal now familiar, shaped by 100 training grips. His whole body wanted to shake, but the discipline of repetition held him still. This is plywood. This is plywood. This has always been plywood. He squeezed. The missile left the tube with a hard, percussive cough that slapped the air around them. For a moment, the launch flash lit the fog from below, turning the world into a negative photograph. In that brief frame, the silhouette ahead jumped into clarity. The distinct turret, the gun barrel, the massive hull. Then, the missile was gone, a streaking ember disappearing into the gray soup. Track it, teacher said, voice flat, controlled. Like we practiced, stay on the point, not the fear. Inside the sight, Alex saw only a glowing dot and the faintest hint of movement beyond it. His hands adjusted in tiny increments, keeping the crosshair leading toward the place where that chalk circle had been on a board months ago. Up a hair, left, hold, he muttered to himself. Teacher listened. It sounded exactly like training, only the stakes had changed. The tank in the fog kept coming, heavy and ignorant. The missile, guided by a man whose brain no longer saw metal but remembered plywood, closed the distance. And somewhere, in the 2 or 3 seconds before impact, the universe balanced on the edge of a single line. Were those stupid wooden silhouettes a waste of time, or the reason anyone on that hill would see tomorrow? Alex exhaled. Now, he whispered, and the fog ahead exploded into orange light. The first thing they felt was the light. It punched through the fog in a dirty orange bloom, rolling outward like a slow explosion underwater. For a heartbeat, the night turned the color of rusted metal and old blood. Then came the sound, not the flat crack of their own launch. This was deeper, heavier, a violent metallic thud followed by a hollow gut-level boom, like someone had slammed a giant hammer into a steel drum. "Hit!" Gray shouted, the word tearing itself out of him. But teacher didn't celebrate. "Stay on it," he snapped. "Confirm." Inside the sight, Alex saw the silhouette stutter. One moment it was a shape moving forward, patient and unstoppable. The next, it jerked, hunched, as if something had yanked its inside sideways. Then, the turret lit up from below. A gush of flame burst out under it, licking along the side of the hull, turning the tank into a lantern in the fog. Black smoke bloomed instantly, thick and oily, folding into the mist like ink spilled in milk. "It's burning," Alex breathed. "Under the turret, we punched the ammo, I think." A second, uglier explosion cut him off. The blast shoved more light into the fog, then ripped part of it away. Pieces of something, armor, gear, maybe parts of men, flickered as dark, spinning shards for a fraction of a second before the night swallowed them. The turret shifted. For a moment, it looked like it tried to climb off the hull. Then it sagged, crooked, no longer a weapon, just dead weight. "Gunner, report," teacher said. "Target 1 destroyed," Alex said, voice hoarse. "Tank is burning, no forward movement." Gray let out a shaky laugh that sounded halfway to sobbing. "We got him," he said. "We actually—" Teacher cut him off with a raised hand. "You got one," he said. "Column's not one tank." As if to prove his point, the night answered. Somewhere deeper in the fog, engines howled. They revved higher, strained, shifted gears. Tracks clanked and screamed as the vehicles behind the lead tank tried to react to a reality that hadn't existed 5 seconds ago. Their spearhead was gone. In the gully, chaos had no clear shape, but it had a sound. Shouted orders on enemy radios they couldn't quite hear, metal squealing as drivers slammed brakes too hard. A crashing noise as one vehicle bumped into another in the confusion. Mole, binoculars up, scanned the swirling mess of light and shadow below. "I've got another one," he said. "Behind the burning tank, lower silhouette, smaller turret. That's not a main battle tank." "IFV," teacher said immediately. "BMP or similar. If we pin that, the rest will knot up." Gray was already dragging another missile into place. Movement's automatic now. He popped the tube open, locked it in, fed the cable. His hands no longer shook. The first successful hit had burned the worst of the terror out of him, replaced by something harder, sharper. "We're hot," he said. "Second round ready?" Teacher lowered his head next to Alex again. "Same drill," he murmured. "New silhouette, same brain. Don't fall in love with the first kill." Alex forced his eye back to the sight. The burning tank was now a violent, writhing sun in the middle of his field of view, its heat and light distorting everything around it. The fog glowed around it, turning the whole gully into a sickly orange womb. But behind that brightness, he saw movement. "There," he whispered. "Behind the wreck. Lower hull, shorter gun. It's trying to reverse. It's stuck. There's something behind it." "Probably another vehicle," Mole said. "You see how the rear kicks? It hit something." A traffic jam in a kill zone. Teacher almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "Target?" he asked. "Infantry fighting vehicle," Alex said. The identification no longer sounded like a guess. "It's backing up blind. The driver's panicking." "Good," Teacher said. "Panic makes armor stupid. Where's its weak point?" Alex didn't even have to close his eyes this time. "Under the turret, center mass," he said. "Side, if I can see it. Engine bay, if it's turned." Teacher's mouth twitched, not a smile, just the ghost of one. "Then write it on the fog." "Target locked," Alex murmured. "I've got him. Distance about the same 1,000, give or take." "Send," Teacher said. The second launch didn't feel like a leap into the unknown anymore. It felt like the next repetition of a well-known drill. The missile spat fire and roared out, cutting a brief, bright line through the smoky air. For a moment, the burning tank and the missile's flare painted each other, one dying, one on its way to kill. In the sight, Alex tracked, calm now, adjusting the aim almost lazily. Left, little more, hold. The baby orange bloom this time was smaller, but no less final. It bit into the side of the IFV like a spark into dry cloth. The vehicle jerked, shuddered, then stopped moving. Flames crawled out along its roof, along the hatches, along anything that could burn. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the voices started, not on their radios. In the distance, thin and shredded by the fog, they heard raw human sound, shouts, curses, the high, panicked notes of men who had just watched the lead vehicles of their assault vanish in noise and fire. "Two," Gray said, almost in disbelief. "Two down." On the neighboring position, Chief and his men watched the sky turn black-orange over the gully. "What the hell?" someone whispered. Chief lifted his binoculars, craning his neck. "Is that them?" Fox asked beside him. "That's them," Chief said quietly. There was no mockery in his voice now, only respect edged with something like relief. "Hate to admit it," Fox muttered, "but I'm glad those maniacs spent weeks yelling at plywood instead of playing cards." Teacher listened to none of it. His world was still that narrow strip of terrain in front of them, the fog, the burning wrecks, the possibilities. "Movement?" he asked. Mole scanned. "Vehicles in the back," he said. "They're turning. Some are reversing, some trying to get off the track. They don't know if there's more missiles or from where." "There are more missiles," Gray said darkly, patting the next tube. Teacher shook his head. "We don't waste," he said. "We've done what we needed to. Their lead is gone. The push is broken. They'll either pull back or blunder around and get smashed by artillery." As if on cue, far behind them, heavier guns began to speak. The distant boom of friendly batteries rolled across the night, and moments later, the gully lit up with a different kind of fire. High, white flashes of incoming shells, walking along the stalled column. "They're in the trap now," Teacher said. "We were just the trigger." Sauer sat back slowly, as if his bones had been replaced with wet cloth. His hands still clenched the radio handset so tight his knuckles were white. "We stopped them," he said, almost not believing the words. "They didn't even reach the minefields. They didn't get to the infantry line." Teacher looked at him. "No," he said. "You stopped them, with your eyes and your nerves and every boring hour you hated me for." He checked his watch, more from habit than need. "Stay ready," he added. "We hold this state until we're sure they're not regrouping." But in his gut, he already knew. This attack was over. Dawn came slowly, smearing weak color along the top of the clouds. The fog thinned by degrees, grudgingly, as if it didn't want to show them what it had been hiding. When the first real light finally spilled into the gully, it turned the wrecks into something painfully real. The tank lay at an angle, nose buried in the churned-up earth, turret twisted sideways, blackened and cracked. The hull was torn where the missile had dug in, edges peeled and curled like paper. Soot streaks climbed up from the wound, vanishing into the air. The IFV sat skewed directly behind it, rammed up close. Its top hatches were black holes rimmed with scorched metal. One of its tracks had jumped, hanging loose and useless. Further back, half visible, some vehicles had managed to turn around, clawing their way out of the choke point. Others had simply stopped and then paid for it. Cratered earth and broken metal marked where artillery had found them. Sauer stood at the edge of their position and stared down, helmet in his hands. "That's ours," he said softly. "We did that," Gray snorted. "Who else?" "The plywood," he said. Mole just watched, eyes unreadable. Behind them, footsteps crunched on the frozen ground. Chief appeared, climbing up from the side path, his breath smoking in the cold morning air. His helmet was pushed back on his head, his face tired but very awake. He stopped beside them, took in the view, and whistled low. "Well," he said, "you crazy bastards actually did it." Teacher turned his head slightly. "Morning," he said. Chief nodded toward the burning hulks. "Lead tank in an IFV?" he asked. "Tank first, IFV second," Teacher confirmed. "The rest decided they had better places to be." Chief exhaled, long and slow. "You know," he said, "I used to tell my guys you were running a circus up here, shooting at plywood while the rest of us did real work." Sauer shifted uncomfortably, but Teacher's expression didn't change. "What do you call it now?" he asked. Chief gave a short, humorless laugh. "Now," he said, "now I call it the most boring miracle I've ever seen." He clapped Teacher on the shoulder. "Keep your circus running," he said. "Next time they try, I'd like another free show." He turned and walked back, leaving the crew alone with the dawn and the wrecks. In the dugout that evening, the mood was strange. It wasn't celebration. They were too tired for that, too aware of how easily it could have gone differently. It was more like a long exhale after holding their breath for months. Sauer sat hunched over his notebook, writing very slowly. When Teacher passed by, he looked up. "What are you doing?" Teacher asked. "Logging," Sauer said. "Time, conditions, number of targets, sequence." He hesitated. "And something else." Teacher raised an eyebrow. Sauer turned the notebook so he could see. On the page below the official lines and numbers, Sauer had written in block letters, "Every day of plywood, one night alive." It was childish. It was not regulation. Teacher stared at it for a moment, then he nodded once. "Make that your motto," he said, "not just words. Something you live by." Gray leaned back on his bunk, arms folded behind his head. "So, do we finally get to burn those stupid cutouts?" he asked. "You know, like a victory pyre or something?" Alex, sitting on a crate with a mug of something too weak to be coffee, shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "We don't burn them." Gray frowned. "Why not?" Alex's fingers tightened around the mug. "Because next time," he said, "I'd rather hit plywood 10,000 more times than miss steel once." Nobody argued with that. Teacher looked at them, at the lines under their eyes, at the little tremors still in their hands, at the flickers of something fierce and new in their faces. "Tomorrow," he said, "we start again." Sauer groaned. "You're kidding," he said. "After today?" Teacher shook his head. "Today is exactly why," he replied. "You saw what preparation buys. It doesn't buy medals. It doesn't buy glory. It buys one simple thing." He pointed upward, toward the roof, toward the sky, toward the whole shuddering front. "Time. Time for everyone behind us. Time for some kid in a trench who doesn't know your names and never will, to live another day because a tank that was driving toward him is now scrap metal in a ditch." He let that sink in. "Heroes are overrated," he said quietly. "Professionals are what win wars." The next afternoon, the ridge looked almost the same as it had weeks before. Same trench, same net, same wind, and a new line of plywood silhouettes. These ones were cleaner, cut with more care, painted more precisely. Someone had even drawn rough outlines of side skirts, IR lamps, storage boxes, little details that made the shapes closer to reality. On them, in red paint, small circles marked the weak spots. Under one of the larger silhouettes, someone had written in black marker, "In case of fog, aim here." Under another, in Sauer's messy handwriting, "Homework never ends." The crew stood there, looking at their new army. "You know they're going to laugh again," Gray said. "Let them," Mole replied. "They laughed last time too." He nodded toward the gully, where faint smoke still clung to the twisted hulks far below. "We know who laughed last." Teacher stepped up beside one of the plywood tanks and ran his hand along the edge. To anyone passing by, it would look like a man patting a piece of wood. But he wasn't. He was touching the sum of every boring minute, every repeated drill, every curse muttered under the breath of a tired soldier, all of it condensed into the simple shape of a target. Behind him, Alex shouldered the training tube and dropped to one knee. "Same drill?" he asked. "Same drill," Teacher said, "until you can do it in your sleep, until you don't see plywood or steel anymore. You see angles and points." He took his notebook out of his pocket and clicked his pen. "Chapter 2, he said. Sauer blinked. "Chapter 2 of what?" he asked. Teacher looked at him. "Of the story where you live long enough," he said. "Now, target 1. Describe what doesn't belong." Alex peered through the sight, at the fake tank, at the fake hill, at the fake scenario. He smiled, just a little. "Straight line in a world of curves," he said. "Plywood pretending to be steel." Teacher nodded. "Good," he murmured. "Find it, fix it, kill it, again." Behind them, somewhere far away, the war went on. Artillery, drones, patrols, supplies, orders. On that ridge, on that little scrap of dirt, a handful of men did the most unglamorous, unromantic, and vital thing a soldier can do. They practiced. Their comrades called it shooting at plywood. The enemy, if it survived long enough to understand, would have called it something else. Preparation. And one foggy night, when real steel crawled out of the mist and died in fire before it ever saw their trenches, that preparation drew a straight, invisible line between two possible futures. One where a tank reached a line of sleeping infantry, and one where it didn't. The only difference between those futures was measured in hours of sweat, boredom, and stubborn repetition. Hours spent staring at plywood, and that, in the end, was what saved them. Not luck, not miracles, just men who took pretend tanks seriously and never forgot where to aim.